even know whether I will even get their phones. They say they're on emergency call. So if you finish, you could do it. If you not finish. When you launch this start, you let me know. Okay, we're about to start our live of today, and yeah, we have a couple of minutes into the program. If you're signing in today, we want to welcome you on this Saturday, exactly the same day which we started this program, and we'd like to welcome all of you that will be signing in a couple of minutes, as we are going to be sharing impressions of today with you, what is making news about the coronavirus, social distancing show, and also reflections about the past days, as well as information reaching us as tips that we would like to share with you. So if you're joining in this moment, we kindly ask you to share and invite your friends, your families, brothers and sisters, your colleagues, to join us on this show of today. Okay. Yeah, thank you, Peter, for your script of today. I just received it, and we'll be sharing these impressions with people that are joining us on this show today. And yes, we want to thank everyone that is signing in today to be with us on this program. We have a couple of information to share with you today. Like you saw on our program, it is a remorseful day today. Today, actually, we had planned to pay a tribute to legend Manu Dibango, who passed away last week and was buried yesterday in Paris in a solemn kind of burial ceremony. And this has been very disturbing, as we saw comments and information from the social media about this kind of a sad way to depart in times of coronavirus, COVID-19 like this. So, ladies and gentlemen, we would be sharing these impressions shortly with you about the vanity of life. And we are saying it is a very sad situation if someone has to die in this period of coronavirus, COVID-19. Actually, it is not the right time to die. We know all of us are going to pass away sooner or later, but you know, having passed away in this period where you don't have even your closest family to depart from you, it is even more painful. And so we want to share our contribution with the family that is grieving, with the world that is grieving, and not only in terms of this special case, but also those that have lost their loved ones during this period of coronavirus, COVID-19, which is actually not the only cause of death today. But you know, every day we know that people die, people disappear, people give up in one way or the other. That has not been the topic for these days. The topic for these days is people that are actually passing away because of coronavirus, COVID-19. Yes, so that is going to be one of the issues that we'll be talking today. The sad departure of or burial of our legend Manu Dibango, as compared to other artist in this category and what type of an artist he was. And it is so sad that he has to pass away at this point in time. And we are thinking that it should not be the right time for these things to happen, but it happens anyway. Yes, but we also have some good news from Top Radio. I just got it from Top Radio. Harry Mwale was saying, you know, more than 100,000 people successfully recovered from coronavirus worldwide. Yes, we don't know how this information's true, but we see a lot of statistics about people that are recovering every day. We've seen even on the social media, you know, videos that are circulating the platform about people that are confessing their recovery from this deadly disease. And we think this is actually a good news and a good point in time after going through the quarantine period, after going through the social distancing period. We think this is consoling in times like this, that 100,000 people out of the infected people that are reported worldwide are recovering or have successfully recovered. That is a very good news. Yes, we have a very important topic for today, to which we have a very prominent guest, a speaker that will be joining us anytime soon. It might happen that we would not have him for one reason or the other, because he's just signing in to tell us he's on 24/7 call, and if he doesn't happen to sign in to talk to us today, we should understand, but he would be with us on subsequent shows. And he's in the person of Professor Dr. Alphonse Renz of the Institute of Ecology and Evolution in Tübingen, Germany. This is a very prominent tropical university medicines and worldwide recognized, and most of the alma maters of Germany have passed through this university, and that's why Tübingen is very famous and reputed in the world at large as one of the best tropical university centers in the world. And Professor Dr. Alphonse has been operating projects and programs in Cameroon and also in Ethiopia for more than 30 years. And that's why an expert like that is dealing in this sector has really a huge knowledge and impact to share with us today. But one of the things we want to look at is the impact of coronavirus COVID-19 on the educational sector of Africa. I mean, we know this is the sector that is currently on the move right now. We're talking about the education, about awareness about the coronavirus COVID-19. I mean, and we can already see that it is playing a huge role. But how is it affecting us on the continent of Africa? We're going to look into that because it is devastating. Information can be a good source to impact people and create awareness and create even change. But on the contrary, we also see some measures that are taken on the continent of Africa that we begin to think it might also cause a huge problem after this situation currently going on now. So we are calling on each and every one of us to pay close attention to the kind of information we are giving, because it's a source of education. We are educating people about the hygienic conditions, but we're also educating the entire world about the situation in the West, and we are thinking that it should be also implemented on the continent of Africa. And this can be a very confusing situation, as we are going to see from the situation going on the continent, like what kind of measures are being put into place. The methodology of communication in the West about this COVID-19 and the measures taken are contradictory or are not implemented the way it should be on the continent of Africa. And now we see also this African way of copy and paste information. And this is one of the things that we're looking forward, that during this changing period, we are actually going to refrain or disease from this kind of attitude. We have to look into ourselves and Africans and see what works for Africa and what actually works in our context. I mean, we heard it yesterday from the ambassador of Tanzania, who actually said not every measures that are implemented in the EU or in the United States or in the West are applicable to African countries or to Africa as a continent. But what did we see today, or what are we experiencing on the social media today? I mean, there are a lot of confusing information going on. We saw videos of how Indian, or I think Bangladesh, are using, the whip, to chase out people from the street. And now we are seeing the same videos coming from African countries, how people, small market people on the street are being chased. And in such a dramatic way that women are being whipped on the street and their goods destroyed. And we begin to ask ourselves, I mean, is this actually the kind of communication we need to deal with our people? And we're going to see a lot of dynamics taking place. We know us as Africans. I mean, we know the possibility that, people would take this as an advantage, to settle scores or to misbehave or to even break the laws. And so we're really asking, are these actually regulations that are stipulated by the leaders, by the countries, that they should implement on local people, on villages, and it is actually disturbing. So in times like this, we have to know what kind of information actually works and the methodology of communication, especially on our continent. What doesn't work will not function. What works in the West would absolutely not function on the continent of Africa, and we are seeing that every day. So ladies and gentlemen, it is very, very important for us to, go into the dynamics of this kind of communication that is going around, and it could be that COVID-19 would change a lot of things. We said it already, the world would never be the same again. That's for real. But the reality is that the world might change from better to worse. We didn't even think about that. If we see the impact already, like we're saying it's having on education, what actually are we talking about? Education in Africa is still in a kind of a, how do we say, hands-on, in a practical format. It means schools are going on daily. So we don't have that kind of technology that online schooling would be effective on the continent of Africa. That's serious. That's normal because of the infrastructures, because of the technology that we don't have. Even if we have in the major cities, we don't have them in the local or the rural areas. I mean, so it means, as a matter of fact, even if the homeschooling would be practical in Africa, we still have possibilities that there is no light, no electricity, you understand, and no technology. And how many people have access to internet? You understand? Because these are online services, like we're saying. That is the impact on the coronavirus, COVID-19, on our continent. But these are things that are easily, as methodology to solve the crisis, and the implementations are going on online. But in Africa, it doesn't work. Now, we come across a situation where the online services is not only a platform for educating the public, but it is also a platform for business people. Now we see home offices. It's current in Europe. It's current everywhere in the world, in the West. But in Africa, it's not practical. And these are all the impact of education on the educational sector. The inability for Africa now to transport all these services online because of our poor infrastructure, because of our network, it is not going to work, and it will never work. Now, I would like to, I think Professor Dr. Afonso is currently calling right now, and let me see if we can get him online and we tell him that we're still, hello? Okay, I think he was trying our lines and he would be back with us. Yes. So, like we were saying, the format of education in the West is not the format or the methodology. Like, okay, schools are going online. They have online classes, online education, and even online businesses. That has been the technology of the new world, of the modern technology. But we are still not at that stage. And so these are all the impacts that the educational sector is going to suffer in creating of awareness. Just look at how we're confused now. And we say the African way of education or communicating a simple message to the public is through whip. How practical is that? How are we going to stand and watch, men in uniform batter our women, destroy their goods? How? So it's conflicting. It's conflicting in the kind of communication and the methodology. But on the other side, we also see that we African people sometimes don't also adhere to certain conditions. If they say today, it's not a matter of just staying indoor because of social distancing, but I think it's just even a matter of ethics. If it is a matter of ethics that we are fighting for survival, that we say, oh, if I don't go to the market today, I won't survive, I won't live. And then you come back to the ethics of today's world that is changing, that even those that are in Europe, that are even dying of the virus more than on the continent of Africa. And these are people whose lives are stable, people who are doing well, people who are actually satisfied with what they're doing, but they are dying. So is it a matter of do or die? Is it a matter of survival? Is it a matter of taking excuses like, oh, if I stay indoor today, I will not be able to feed myself, I would die of hunger, or I would die? It's just a period of time. So you see, these are conflicting information that when it has to do with us African people and the continent we're dealing with and our people, we are going to see another kind of dynamics that will be playing a role. Conflicts are going to be settled differently. Now we already see it. And even more conflicts would arise. So if we say the coronavirus COVID-19 is causing a change, now we have to think, what kind of a change? A change could be positive, a change can also be negative. And so it's not always positive. It's the same thing like we say we have to think about our lives now. We have to educate ourselves. How do we live? How do we treat others? How do we treat even our own self? How do we treat humanity? How do we treat our planet? Those are things that are bringing a change through this changing period. But of course, it can also still be that we would be changing towards the negative direction. It's possible. And so this kind of reflections and impacts is causing us to reflect, and not only a one-sided functional system we will or that we would experience. So we should be ready for impacts that would come from any kind of outcome from the COVID-19, especially on our continent and its people. But one thing is certain, that something would change. There would be a change. After this period, starting in Europe and the West, there would be a drastic change. Whatever, however, whenever, what kind of methodology, that change must come. What we want to focus on is us Africans, how we communicate, how we educate ourselves. But we are also going to see really a practical examples of how this coronavirus COVID-19 is affecting, the education sector in terms of researchers. That's what actually Professor Dr. Alphonse is about to share with us today. I hope we will be able to have him on the panel today. That would be a great impact on us that we can see. Because when he expressed this frustration about his PhD students, mostly those that are coming from African countries, are actually blocked. Right now, no one has access to come in, and they have programs that they've been working on, and so it's going to be a year loss, and they don't even know when it's going to recover. This is frustrating. This is frustrating for the research and development of Africa. Because we're talking about exchange of goods and service, traveling, possibilities, and the coronavirus COVID-19 is just say, you know what, stop. All borders are closed. All airports are closed. And he was telling me about a particular case from the northwest province of Cameroon, and a student from Bafut particularly that has been on the program and had to return home for a research program yesterday, and the visa was cancelled and the flight cancelled because there's no access into Cameroon these days and other countries of the world. These are situations that are actually creating a huge impact on the educational sector of Africa and Africans. But like I said before, what is more disturbing is the fact that, schools are closing in Europe. It's a shutdown period. We heard about it, even China. But all their services, because of their technological advancement, is being transferred online. yes, there would be a kind of a difference or disparity in information, but it's not going to be felt as we would encounter on the continent of Africa. Yes, but some people will argue and say, why not? I mean, the country has even been, they're suffering, the regions that schools have not been operating for this while. So what about that? We're talking about a global picture. We're talking about the effect that is going to have on a long term, how we would be able to bounce back, and it's going to cause us problems on the continent before than even in the case before. Yeah, so now, another very hiking topic that we would also like to discuss with Professor Dr. Alphonse is the information that we're getting from many resources about the fact that coronavirus is actually claiming the lives of men as compared to women that are infected. We'll be reading about some statistics for you to get a picture of it, but as of now, it is not clear why. I mean, some suggestions are that, yeah, because men smoke, because of smoking, and so their lungs are already immune or are already at a negative sector. But I mean, from the results and the researches that were taken, it still shows that women who smoke and being infected of it don't die like the percentage of men. Like we're talking about China, out of 2.8 men, you know, we have 1.7 women that were affected dead. We're talking about Italy, 71% of men died proportionately to the women that were infected. And we're talking about Spain with twice as many, you know, the number of men that are dying than women. I mean, these are disturbing statistics that we are getting, that we are sharing with you on the Daily Show to keep us updated. And so tomorrow, as we said, we are rewriting the world history again. The history of the world would be determined after coronavirus. I'm sure we're going to start having new history books because the one of the past is going to be outdated. And so Africa is also rewriting its history now. And all these are statistics and facts that we'll start getting, and one day we'll be able to remember, oh, it all happened in our times. Even though we're not taking it like it's you know, because we're living the time, sometimes it's not realistic, but that is the fact that we are rewriting the world history, and so Africa is rewriting its history again. And so we are reflecting on these topics like, what is actually life? What is life? You saw it in our script that after going through all this kind of research and information and all the hygienic and everything, at a certain time you sit and just look at a situation in which, you know, people cannot even grieve because of the present situation in which we are talking about today. Even us from the Africa Festival Tübingen, we had planned to normal celebration as a tribute, you know, to one of the biggest artists that passed away. But because of the situation, and the family is asking the world to just bear with them and give them the space to grieve their loved one in a private corner and in a private and a solemn way, and informations about whatever, about, you know, the kind of mourning ceremony or that would be given in a personality like that would be announced in the future. And so this really touched us from the Daily Show, that we wanted to just take a minute up and reflect about our lives and said, what is actually life? I mean, you can imagine a situation in which an artist like this, I mean, we're talking about last year, we lost also a prominent artist, you know, DJ Arafat, and we saw the glamour paying him the last day respect for his life and his services on earth. We saw the way Ivory Coast put on a show, and musicians, African musicians, flew in from worldwide to pay him the last respect. And if you look at DJ Arafat, 33 years old, and you put our legend Manu Dibango at the age of 86, and you look at ceremonies that he's been able to sing, you know, as to pay honor for very great and important personalities in the world. And today, he was buried yesterday in the presence of 5 persons. It is actually disturbing, and we see situations that pull you back in life. And then we start reflecting on the question is, what does it even matter even if the whole world was there? What does it actually matter? And it brings us to another reflection to say, it is very important the moment that we are living in. When they say all is vanity after you've left, then it becomes vanity. Life is vanity when you don't exist anymore. Life is vanity for our legend Manu Dibango. Life is vanity. His passing away is vanity. But the time you are still living, life is not vanity, because you still have something to give to life. Life is still expecting from you. Is it love? Is it humanity? Is it kindness? Is it just even loving your own self and appreciating yourself? Because during this time, when we reflect about this topic, all is vanity, now we see this pandemic also, this pandemic that is going on, that people are thinking to change from this life to the next life. Now we just have to start, oh, I need to forgive. I need to do the good things that I don't. Yes, of course, that's the global picture. It is. But what about you? What about your own self? You understand? What about giving those very things to you? So I think it's a lot of reflection in different directions that we say. It is a moment on this show that we're thinking and we're reflecting about the situation that is claiming lives today. And we raising our voice to say it's all vanity, as a matter of fact. But what matters is the moment, is the today. Because the tomorrow is not sure, isn't it? And if the tomorrow is not sure, that's when in your own life it is vanity. And so a question is coming up like, yeah, what even if the whole stadium and the kind of morning ceremony that we expect to see was there? Is it enough now for us to say, oh, he was loved and appreciated? How do we Africans treat one another when we're still alive? That is the question. How do you treat one another when we're still alive? This is the question what it brought us to the topic, all is vanity. So we have to live our lives thinking that, you could share a moment every day for yourself, for your loved ones, for your family. You can let go of the past. You can love life and love humanity. And so that's said and done, ladies and gentlemen. He has rested, and we are also sending our condolences to the family and to loved ones around the world to say, live the moment now. Live the moment. Take into the instructions of what is going on around the world. Just pull back. We can't say it many a times again. Tomorrow can be so late. Yes. Now we want to try to get Professor Dr. Alphonse online if we are lucky, if he's not in the lab somewhere. And if we get him, we have really the question of the day to ask him, how does this viruses actually operate? What kind of what kind of envisaging are we having? They are in the lab every day. They have the latest development. They have the statistics, how long it's going to go. Is there even a vaccine that, we are thinking could come out in the next days? Or is it going to go on and on without us having a feedback? So let us try to see if we would get him online. That would be the best thing that we could do this evening. If not, like he said, if we don't have him online, he should be running somewhere in the lab in Tübingen.
Hello.
Hello. Good evening, Professor.
Good evening, Susan.
Thank you, Professor Dr. Alphonse. We're happy to have you on this show today. And yes, how are you feeling in Tübingen and Germany at present?
At present, frankly, I'm feeling very fine. We are looked after by our children. We just have a barbecue in the garden. And, well, actually the crisis has not yet hit us.
Okay, yes. Thank God for your life, Professor Doctor, that you are having a barbecue right now with your grandchildren, but the world is bleeding. The world is mourning, and we don't have an answer. What is the situation for experts like you concerning this coronavirus, COVID-19? What is going on?
Well, it takes us somehow by surprise. However, there is always a risk of natural catastrophes. May it be a tsunami or earthquake, a volcano exploding. We know that those things may happen. But mankind is not willing to invest much money and much energy, much thought into the risks of life. So it took us by surprise, and now we have to live with an epidemic which in short time has taken the whole world into its grip. We still scientifically do not have all the knowledge to understand what's going on. We learn every day.
What is actually different from this virus as compared to the other virus? I mean, this is your program. What is different? What is the difference as compared to the previous viruses?
That's a good question. I started more than 40 years ago working in Cameroon and studying a disease which is endemic. It's river blindness, onchocerciasis. If today you go into a village, you will see there are about 90% infected by the parasite. If you're coming back 1 year or 10 years later, it still remains that the same percentage of persons is infected. So it's endemic, it's stable. Whereas the virus disease, it is epidemic. It comes, it hits, and it will disappear.
Okay, so there are still some viruses that are even not discovered yet, like this one that you're talking about, the river blindness. And where particularly was this project going on for 30 years? You said in Cameroon?
It's since more than 40 years in Cameroon.
Oh, okay.
It's not a virus, it's a parasite, it's a worm.
It's a worm.
The worms are long living and they are prepared to use their hosts for a long time. For their lifetime of 10 years, and they keep it for their successors. So it's an endemic. Viruses, they have a different philosophy of life. They come, they hit, and they either kill their hosts or the hosts become immune, and then the virus disappears. And that's a good hope, it's a good perspective. The virus shall disappear. Like we have summer and winter, so the virus comes and it will disappear. The big question shall be whether it becomes endemic. So it comes back every year at a certain level. We don't know.
Oh, okay. Professor Dr. Alphonse, you've been operating on the continent of Africa for 40 years. And now we are seeing the outbreak of this COVID-19, and we're seeing the necessary measures that are being taken in Europe and the world. How can you actually relate these measures that are taken in Europe with regard to the African continent?
Well, first of all, diseases or vectors, parasites, viruses, they don't respect national borders. They are international problem, and this is perhaps the good and the bad thing. That it forces the nations, the continents to come together to solve great problems by a great collaboration.
Oh.
And this was the case of the onchocerciasis control program in West Africa. More than 20 countries were engaged, and they learned to collaborate. And those colleagues which have been engaged in this WHO-guided program, they are now ministers. They know that international collaboration is necessary to cope with the big problems of our world.
That is absolutely correct, Professor. But then this arises another question, like you say. I mean, in a situation of a crisis like this, it all entails international collaboration. And we are seeing that this, while other countries are collaborating, not other countries are collaborating. I mean, let me just go straight to the point to say, do you see actually Europe, or particularly Germany, being a collaborator to other countries, like, let's just say, like Africa, which is one of its biggest partner, or are they more focused on really trying to deal with themselves and the situation right now? How is the collaboration going to be more pragmatic?
It's trying to organize. You see, now Germany is delivering medical care products, the urgently needed respiratory machines to Italy, hoping that when the situation is getting better in Italy, it may become worse in Germany. And then we would need support from our neighbors.
Yes.
Like, so the problem has passed in China. Now the factories are starting again producing protection masks for Europe. But still there's a big gap of collaboration between Africa and Germany. Let's just take one example. Germany is trying to get its countrymen back from Cameroon by organizing flights. I will start, I think today or tomorrow, from Yaoundé. But we have the same problem that Cameroonians are now stranded in Germany. I have 2 students which wanted to return to Cameroon. They have to stay here. Why can't the same flights which bring Germans back to Germany bring Africans back to Cameroon?
That's true.
This would be a question of collaboration between the embassies, between the states. It would help both sides.
That's true. It's a collateral collaboration, you mean? Yes. Now tell me about your program. I mean, you just mentioned that, you had students that had to go back. I mean, we know ourselves, I know what you do, but do you want to share this experience with, how does it impact your research program with your African students at present?
Well, we're trying to arrange with the situation. 2 of my Cameroonian students have just finished their PhD. They are now have time to write down publications. They are busy. I have another young Cameroonian. He got a grant to test insecticides against the vectors of river blindness. The interesting thing is that we have the same flies even in Germany. So we can go to German rivers, collect larvae here around Tübingen, and do the testing here in Tübingen. So we are trying to manage with the collaboration, and that's again a positive thing which we can learn during this crisis. We need collaboration. We need our brain to find solutions. It's great if international collaboration is bringing such solutions, and we are understanding that we are one population all over the globe.
That's true. That's true. That's a very interesting one there, that we are one people, we are one. I mean, we need one solidarity format and one collaborating format in times like this. I mean, this has been very interesting to share this knowledge with you. I have one question from the public that was asking, is this program of yours open to African students or PhD researchers worldwide? I mean, like to other countries, or it's particularly for some countries?
Well, my experience is working in Cameroon. Also in Ethiopia, but it's focused on one disease, river blindness.
Okay.
Within 40 years, we found solutions. Now, at places where there was nothing but bush 40 years ago. Now we have universities, and the students of my first PhD graduate of Cameroonian, they are now my students.
Okay.
We are not the great project, but
Yeah.
we are welcoming the participation of young Cameroonians, young African students. They are welcome.
Okay. Thank you very much, Professor. It's been a pleasure to have you on this program. I mean, when we will be dealing with particular subjects or topics in terms of research and epidemics and pandemics and evolution and ecology, we would get back to you. It has been a pleasure to have you. Thank you and stay safe. God bless you, Professor Dr. Alphonse.
Thank you for this interview.
Thank you.
Goodbye.
Goodbye. So we were very, fortunate to have Professor Dr. Alphonse online, and I'm really thanking most of our guests that contact us, or we contact them in the one way or the other to share this experience with them. And it's been a wonderful pleasure. Now we're going to read why are men more affected, or why are men dying of corona COVID-19 more than women? I mean, so we had a research paper from Peter, as usual, who's saying, according to The Guardian published on March 26, I mean, we're talking about 2 days ago. Yeah, today we are 28th of March. I mean, March 26, 2020. It has been well publicized that COVID-19 discriminates by age and by underlying health conditions. It means people that are already having crisis in this sector. But it has become increasingly apparent that it also discriminates by sex. With men more likely to test positive and more likely to die from the disease. The trend was first seen in China, where one analysis found a fatality rate of 2.8 in men compared with 1.7 in men. That's when the trend started, that they started opening eyes, like, why is it that men die most of this disease than women that are affected also in this with this coronavirus. Since then, the pattern has been mirrored in France, Germany, Iran, Italy, South Korea, and Spain. I mean, there's been researching going on, like, why is this occurring? In Italy, men have accounted for 71% of deaths, and in Spain, data released on Thursday suggests twice as many men as women have died. So why are men vulnerable to this disease? That's the question that we are asking. I mean, it should not be a kind of a stereotype, but it's just for information's sake for us to know, why is it that men are dying of corona, the same infections that are infecting women? The honest answer is none of us know what's causing the difference, said Professor Sarah Hawkes, director of the University College of London for Center of Gender and Global Health. Early on, smoking was suggested as a likely explanation, men that smoke, but women do smoke as also. In China, nearly 50% of men, but only about 2% of women smoke. And so underlying difference is lung health were assumed to contribute to men suffering worse symptoms and outcomes. Like in China, 50% of men do smoke as compared to women. But the problem is not, they tested the both, in the same sector, and it shows that 26% of men die than the women in the same, affected also with the smoking. So the smoking hypothesis was backed by a paper published last month that found smokers made up about 12% of those with less severe symptoms, but 26% of those who ended up in intensive care or died. I mean, this is alarming. Smoking might also act as an avenue for getting infected in the first place, because smokers, touch their lips and may share contaminated cigarettes. That's the suggestion or the thinking that could be about. Behavioral factors that differ across genders may also have a role. Some studies have shown that men are less likely to wash their hands. I mean, behavioral. It means general patterns that are particular with men if affected or that are affected. So less likely to wash their hands, men, less likely to use soap, less likely to seek medical care, and more likely to ignore public health advice. These are all statistics that are coming from studies that are showing that in these cases, men are most likely to ignore some of these basic advice that are being given, like wash your hands or smoke. They smoke more often than women and don't seek medical care. So that's the reason why. These are sweeping generalization across the population that could place a greater risk at men. The growing observation of increased mortality in men is holding true across China, Italy, Spain. We are seeing this across very diverse cultures and countries. You know, Sabra Klein, a professor at Johns Hopkins University, actually declared this. You know, so it is disturbing when we get these facts. But the reality is we are in the moment and we are in the virus. And so it depends now on individuals, isn't it? It depends on you as an individual. We know, like they say, all that is that. It doesn't matter, we're all going to die because of something. But this could be very interesting to know that, you know, people out do researches and come out with such outcome. I mean, when I first of all saw that on the headline, I was like, wait a minute, men die than women? How and why? So, ladies and gentlemen, it is getting serious and it will get more serious. But now, even though the recovery rates are, you know, as we hear from that more than 100,000 people successfully are recovering daily, or more are still coming, and we're seeing the situation getting less tenser than in the beginning. Nevertheless, we are seeing now other dynamics as a result of this, like the ones that I just explained before. We're seeing videos of how, you know, women are being flogged, or people are being flogged in the public because they don't adhere to these instructions, that you begin to ask yourself, as a matter of fact, you know, what is this leading to? You know, so as a consequence of coronavirus, COVID-19, a lot of things are going to change. But they could change in a positive, and they could also change in the negative. And so our healthy tips of today are actually based mostly on the morals, on the moral values in these trying times, in these changing times. And before I go to the healthy tips, I would like to announce one very important information that we have to share with you from the Daily Show program here. We would not be hosting tomorrow and Monday. We would start the Daily Show again on Wednesday, because we're trying to put into technical requirements to continue hosting. And Facebook has been coming up now with new regulations for streaming online publications. So Sunday and Monday, we would not stream. We would start the live streams again on Wednesday. But we're going to update you on our page, so stay connected. And then one other information was that you could actually really watch the Susan Tata Daily Show from your other devices, like the smart TV. We had a feedback from viewers that are telling us, hey, we enjoy watching you on the smart TV. You know, you just need to put your screen, you know, on stream, and you can actually watch it. And some of the comments, they were like, the feeling of watching the Daily Show on a smart TV is different just from watching it from our other devices. So I thank you for this feedback about that. Another one important feedback that we have was coming from Africa in the content of how do we stream? Do we stream only on Facebook, or we intend to stream the show on YouTube? And these are all questions that we've taken into consideration, and we want to take a break these 2 days, us from this team, and try to make sure, because they say because of the internet connection, it's difficult to get us live, and most of the times the connection is not good, or most often they don't even have electricity. So, but when they watch from YouTube or after the videos are on YouTube, you know, they could be able to have some stability. Yesterday, I announced that we'll be downloading the past videos on YouTube, but we are also going to start streaming directly from Facebook and on YouTube on Tuesday. So stay tuned to these programs. Yeah. So our healthy tips, like I said, has been a recommendation from a lot of people that were signing in and just saying, okay, I propose a healthy tip. Apart from the practical healthy tips that we know, hand washing, social distancing, you know, keeping less contact, you know, even as we go out, or putting up the gloves, or putting out the clinical respiratory mask that has been prescribed. But, you know, we have this healthy tips from another point of view, from a psychological point of view, from a spiritual point of view. Like, healthy tips are not only practical, they are also spiritual tips that we could practice daily. And some of the tips that they say was like, you know, stay at home is the best prescription. Stay at home. It's a social distancing effect, but it also has a spiritual impact. The hygiene, we know it is a practical healthy tips solution. But now, one of the interesting healthy tips that we were getting is love now. Learn to share what you have now. You know, that's more of a spiritual thing. If you have issues in the past, please let it go and make it a practical example. If there are issues probably at home or in the public or at your job site or in the community that we could not solve as individuals, it is time for us to let go of these issues and come together and learn to collaborate and learn to forgive one another and learn to work together. I mean, we just heard from the interview or our guest that the most important challenge at this point that the world would have to learn, and particularly us African people, is the ability to collaborate in terms of challenges. And we are saying that the global world must act together now as one, whether they like it or not. So the moral ethics and the healthy tips of coronavirus is coming to say we have a moral duty to forgive one another, to love one another, but to love our own selves first. You understand? So these are tips that are coming from the audience, and they say let go of the past. Let go of the past, then adapt to the new ways. These are also healthy tips, like we have to get used to now, you know, morally, to embrace the change that is coming to us. We have to get used to the dynamics of the new world that is coming. And like I said before, it could come from the private sector, it could come from the government sector, but mostly it has to come from us collectively as a global world. Another tip that we had today was, okay, this one I already said it. Love yourself, love life, and love humanity. Love yourself, love life, and love humanity. I mean, we are seeing all these tips coming just to say it's not only about, you know, the practical tips that we're living. These are systems that have worked to tell us, don't do this, don't do this, don't do this, keep a distance. But how do you react apart from this? Apart from keeping a social distance? That's where the healthy tips come now to say it's a psychological thing, it's a spiritual thing. How do we go on with living with one another? And I think this is very important in terms of us African people. It is very, very relevant. How do we rebuild the Africa we want? How do we boost up our morals if we cannot tolerate and collaborate? How do countries in Africa not being able to implement just basic human rights? How can we deviate? I mean, it's like a 150% deviation from the world, from the ethics of humanity. And today we are still seeing, even us African people, that are still practicing some kind of behavioral attitude between us, that you ask yourself, is it all about us? I'm talking about a video, you must have seen that video today circulating on social media. I think it's in a part in Nigeria where, you know, these Bayam Salams or these local traders that are dealing with fruit actually bury this thing in dungeons. I mean, there are some things that we ask ourselves, we African people, what is just wrong with us? We are dealing with a lot of challenges. Coronavirus is just a global pandemic. But we know ourselves as African people that we are going to use every possible means to set us course. We are going to use this as just a national anthem, but governments are going to use this to get fundings, and then they would do it for their private businesses, or they would distort the monies. And we know that leaders would use their people. We know that even churches, we've seen all kind of terrible issues going on online. Churches would use the situation of coronavirus to preach another kind of a preaching just to distort monies from Christians. We know that individuals, even businesses, today we are seeing a very positive. I read this directly from the platform of Rwanda, and they're saying President Paul Kagame is going house to house. They are distributing food to Rwandans and even people, other African people residing in Rwanda, and he is even going along with them to see that they provide electricity. It means even if he would give the orders, people will still not do it. They will still distort it. We will still do every sort of means. I mean, we've seen all these videos and we begin to think, what is the moral effect for us African people? Poverty is not just a word. Poverty doesn't mean you need to get the whole world, but poverty starts in your mind. And we are seeing that these healthy tips are coming to advise us about our poverty mindset. And the question remains, what would change for us Africa and African people after coronavirus? And we are seeing that it could even get worse, that people would use illicit means, that individuals would use pretexts, that governments would use situations to take developmental aid in the name of their people as a collateral that are suffering, but this same aid would not even get to the people that are needing it. What is the situation, Africa? How much more are we going to change the stories? And these are all reflections that we are looking into, and we are talking about ourselves, and we are deliberating on the situation. What next? What next after coronavirus, COVID-19? How are we going to proceed? Are we going to stay on the same agenda of me, myself, and I? We've said it a couple of times. What is going to change? How are you going to impact your lives? How are you going to impact your homes? How are you going to impact your communities? How are you going to impact even your neighborhood? Coronavirus has taught us that even neighbors that could not communicate must communicate. Coronavirus has taught us that even colleagues at work, at job places that could not talk to one another must talk to one another. Coronavirus has taught us and the whole world that, this discrimination from the world, the Western world to Africa has to stop. These are all big, big signs, whether we like it or not. You and me, we know that the whole world, the Western world in particular, has always discriminated Africa. How much more can we say? It is but normal from its history, from its past, from its development, from its narratives. We are always the poor dog on the continent. But coronavirus is coming to tell us another story, that we must collaborate. We must work together. We must come with a common agenda to live in peace with one another, respecting one another, implementing regulations that was set upon. On this note, I want to thank all of you that are watching the show. I want to thank you that have been here with us. I want to thank you for sharing our platform. I want to thank you for every contribution. And please do not forget, you can call us. You can ask questions. When we say we have a guest on the show, doesn't mean that the lines are not open. Our lines are open even now. And so you can call anytime that we are on the show. Immediately we open the lines and we will take your questions. And for those that cannot call, I appreciate your recommendations. I appreciate your inspiration. I appreciate your motivation each time that you write back to us. Us from the decks of Susan Tata, The Daily Show, we want to thank you. We want to welcome you. We want to pray together with you in these 2 days. Tomorrow is Sunday, and the world is relocating to different Zoom conference on their church programs. We encourage you, because we will also be on the church program of our Zoom, and we're encouraging you to pray. Not only pray for the coronavirus that is now that the world is calling, but for us to pray for a better and a peaceful world, and to pray for ourselves. May God bless us. May God bless you and your family. It has been 1 week of the Susan Tata, The Daily Show. Saturday we started, and Saturday we are here with you every day, and we're going to start again on Tuesday with exciting empowerment programs, continuing also with the social distancing, but more practical tips and advice and topics that are focused on empowering one another and creating our lives and narratives as Pan-Africanists and also as Africans worldwide. So we thank you for being with us today. Stay safe, stay healthy, God bless you, and we pray for one another. Bye-bye.